Hey team, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm here to bring you guys a new batch of talismanic electional opportunities, this time nestled between our Gemini New Moon on May 30th and our Sagittarius Full Moon on June 14th. So thankfully we are now out of eclipse season with this lunation. Though while the threat of the eclipses is no longer with us, many of us will have to live, of course, with the effects and after effects, aftershocks, I guess we'll call it, of the eclipses, both on something more of like a national, political, societal level and on a personal level. So I'm glad to see all of you have made it through it, but I know that for many of us, we're still dealing with a lot of the consequences of the eclipse and processing a lot of what has happened since then. But today here we are going to talk about the magical electional opportunities that we're going to have between these two lunations, and we are in a waxing moon phase during this 2 weeks. Of course, anytime we go from a new moon to a full moon, the moon is of course waxing, and when we're using or talking about using the waxing moon in magical contexts, or even in kind of like general electional contexts, not even just those that are wrapped up in a ritual, we are more focused on using the moon and her increase and gain in light as a symbol for increase and gain in whatever it is that we're after. So what that means is that our elections today are going to be focused more on growth, on gain, and on increase. So everybody could probably use a little bit of that. So hopefully there will be an election, a talismanic election in this video that can help you with something that you're struggling with. That is really the goal of this video series, is to help get these elections into the hands of people who might need them and can use them. But today we are going to take a track through our three locations, starting with Australia, who unfortunately has the least amount of electional opportunities for this 2 week period. So we're going to go ahead and talk about Australia, and then Western Europe, and then finally North America, who had the most electional opportunities in this 2 week period. Sorry, Australia. I'm sure your time will come. I remember a couple of years ago when there were several, I think 2 or 3 electional videos in a row where Australia had the most. So, it's just the luck of the draw. Oh, today I'm joined by Blossom, who you may not be able to see very well because she's blurry, but she's there. Let me kind of pull out here, and there she is. Here she is, right here. This is Blossom. This is Blossom, not Bubbles. The leader of the Powerpuff Girls. So our first electional opportunity here for the Australian continent is going to be on June 4th at around 10:44 in the morning, and this is going to be an opportunity for a 10th Lunar Mansion talisman. The 10th Lunar Mansion is one of my favorites, probably my second favorite, second to the 3rd Lunar Mansion, and the 10th Lunar Mansion is one that primarily focuses on health, on increase in health, on supporting the body as it heals, on giving the body more vigor to protect itself from illness. It just has a lot of different utilizations, and I think is really like a perfect example of a waxing moon health talisman. It's about increasing the body's ability to fight for itself, to protect itself, and that tends to be the way that I like to go about recommending healing talismans or rituals. I think it's much safer to increase the body's ability to fight off infection or disease than it is to try to decrease disease itself specifically. I feel like that has much more room to go awry than just making the body more capable of fending off illnesses for itself. The 10th Lunar Mansion is also very helpful, not only just for like the healing part of it all, but also when it comes to relationships with doctors and the diagnostic process. I've had a lot of experiences where the 10th Lunar Mansion has helped its bearers to be in kind of the right situation, or like the right place at the right time, to find a doctor or a physician or a healthcare professional who is able to help them in a way that maybe they didn't think before, or able to like provide the right testing or kind of, pick up the right clues, as it were, to figure out a difficult diagnosis or to find a correct treatment plan and things like that. I've had a number of instances where that's been helpful. So if you're an individual who, of course, is worried about getting sick and just wants to be healthy, wants to remain healthy, the 10th Lunar Mansion can help you with that. If you are somebody who struggles with a health issue, and would like assistance with being stronger as you deal with it, the 10th Lunar Mansion can help you with that. If you're an individual who is recovering from an illness and wants to get stronger faster, or is kind of like generally weakly dispositioned in some way, the 10th Lunar Mansion can help you with that. Pregnancy, the 10th Lunar Mansion can help you through successful and issue-free childbirth, which is a big deal, of course. If you are somebody who has an illness but isn't sure what it actually is and has had trouble identifying it and finding things that help, the 10th Lunar Mansion can help you with that. If you're a doctor, even if you're a physician on the other side of this, who is interested in having something to better help them understand and work with their patients, the 10th Lunar Mansion can help you with that. All in all, the 10th Lunar Mansion is just a really good mansion, and I recommend it a lot for health conditions, and it's nice to be able to have an election for it when we have them, because we don't always. And the 10th Lunar Mansion being from late Cancer to early mid Leo has had some issues lately, either through Saturn's opposition in Aquarius for a long time, or Mars when it comes through the squares in Taurus and Scorpio. So the 10th Lunar Mansion has had a rough go lately. So it's really nice that we're at the back end of it, to where Saturn in late Aquarius is no longer really an issue for that opposition. So taking a look at our election chart for this, we have the moon in the 10th Lunar Mansion in the ascendant. And in this chart, she is applying the trine to the Jupiter and Mars conjunction, which I actually think is really, really nice. In kind of any chart, I think it's really nice, specifically because the moon applies immediately to Jupiter, 3 degrees Leo to 4 degrees Aries. So having this connection with this benefic planet, I think, is really, really nice and really helpful. This is a chart where you kind of have some options. If you notice, I've got late Cancer on the ascendant, and you can do that. You can do late Cancer to get the moon as the ruler of the first house, and the moon is unafflicted by Mars. She's applying a really nice trine to him, or not worried about Saturn's opposition yet. We're not even close to that. She's 22 degrees away from the opposition, so we don't have to worry about that. So you can use the moon as the ruler of the first house if you want, or if you like it better, you can also use, if you want to kind of back it up, this is literally set for 1 minute later at 10:45, you can utilize the Leo ascendant here and get the sun as the ruler of the first house, and the sun is also unafflicted by Mars or Saturn. It really just comes down to preference, one or the other, depending on which one you like more. Maybe you like the moon more, or you're more of a sun person. Both are really good options for this. I don't really think there would be a reason to prefer one over the other. Maybe the moon's position in the first house is a little bit more meaningful and impactful, but the sun in the 11th house is also really meaningful and impactful to health and healing. So it really just comes down to which one you prefer. Either one are a really great option. So our second and final, unfortunately, electional opportunity for Australia is going to be on June 7th at around 11:10 in the morning. And I know this chart looks a little weird from what I kind of normally show, or kind of what you're used to seeing from me. Let me explain. So this is an opportunity for the 13th Lunar Mansion. And the 13th Lunar Mansion is one that is primarily associated with relationships, primarily sexual relationships or sexual health, definitely diving more into like the erotic side of relationships and relating with individuals in a way that kind of contrasts more with like the more like emotional support in relationships that we might look for in like the 6th Lunar Mansion or in the 26th Lunar Mansion. So a little bit different from those, which are more focused on like emotional support and kind of like the emotional bonds that link us to others. The 13th Lunar Mansion is a little bit more lustful, and that's totally fine. As a part of that, the 13th Lunar Mansion can also be very helpful when it comes to helping to deal with like sexual dysfunction, performance anxiety, and sexual activities, conception and fertility, things like that. So there's some good relationship things there. It can be good for kind of finding that spark again in a relationship that maybe has lost it, or helping to rebuild and rekindle one's own personal libido after illness or medication or depression or whatever that's thrown it off. And so taking a look at our election chart here for the 13th Lunar Mansion, I have the moon here in the first house, of course, in the 13th mansion, and she's applying this really nice trine to Venus and Taurus, which I really love for the 13th Lunar Mansion. One, of course, that's about not only relating with other people, but like relating sexually with other people, which the Venus is also all about. Just having a really nice connection to Venus in her sign of domicile. I just thought it was really nice. The moon is unafflicted by Mars or Saturn in this chart. She's not, of course, combust to the sun or anything like that. And in this chart, The reason why it looks kind of weird, I guess, is one, I wanted to keep the trine from the moon to Venus more so than the trine to Mercury, I guess, is where the square to the sun. The square to the sun could also be fine, but if I had to choose between like the square to the sun and the trine of Venus, like no contest in a 13th Lunar Mansion talisman, which I know is weird for me because usually I'm all like, oh, solar aspects with the moon and Lunar Mansion talismans are the best, and they are, truly they are. But this is a very clear like this is a job that Venus needs to get in on. So let's do if we can have that option, let's do that. So that was my first thing that I wanted to keep the Moon Venus trine. The second thing was by putting the moon on the ascendant. Well, with this chart here, like this, I've got Leo on the ascendant, and I can look to the sun as the ruler of the first house, and the sun is unafflicted by Mars or Saturn. Sextile from a wide sextile from Mars, and a wide trine from Saturn, like whatever, not afflicted. And so that's good. That's what we want. But if I had put the moon closer to the ascendant, like with Virgo on the ascendant, then Mercury, of course, rules Virgo. And Mercury is, hold on, let me make it, here we go. Mercury is square Saturn, almost exactly in this chart. And you don't do that. You don't mess with the ruler of the first house in this. So especially with a talisman that's supposed to be like helpful with fertility and conception and pregnancy, and for alleviating like performance anxiety and impotence and things like that. Like Saturn is all about messing with all those things in a really bad way. So having the Mercury as the ruler of the first house afflicted by Saturn would run risk of kind of like not exactly solving the issue. So it's much better to have the sun as the ruler of the first house who doesn't have to worry about any of that than Mercury. So definitely stand by my decision here. All right, so that was all of our electional opportunities for the Australian continent. Now we're going to kind of shift our focus to talking more about the electional opportunities that are going to be available for Western Europe and North Africa. Western Europe and North Africa are going to have 4 electional opportunities, and I always feel like I tempt fate when I list or like when I tell the number of elections that a location has before I even get into them, because usually what happens is I say there's like 4 of them, and then as I look at them, I'm like, what was I thinking? And I throw one out, and then there's only 3, but I have it in here where I said that there were 4. So let's just roll with it and see what happens. So our first electional opportunity, and a lot of these happen kind of quickly. There's 3 that happen very, very quickly in succession with one another. But our first electional opportunity for Western Europe and North Africa is going to be on June 4th at just after 3 in the morning. This chart here is set for 3:02 a.m. And this is going to be an opportunity for the 10th Lunar Mansion talisman, Al-Jabah. And the 10th Lunar Mansion is one of my favorite ones. It is one that is that is specifically utilized for health concerns, whether that be somebody who is ill and wants to feel better, or somebody who wants to make sure that they don't get ill for use for like preventative medicine, for strengthening the body, its ability to respond to attacks from the outside. So kind of your more like immunity boosting talisman kind of a thing. It's also useful for people who are struggling to find a diagnosis for a health condition that they're dealing with. It can also be very useful for people who feel like they are not getting the attention that they need from their physicians. I've had a lot of examples where the 10th Lunar Mansion has helped people to find the right doctor that they need to help them with their issue, or to kind of like give them a doctor who like hits the right buttons, I guess we'll say, to get the wheels turning on finding out or finding a solution to a problem, whether that is a problem of getting a diagnosis or a problem of finding a good and effective treatment for whatever their problem is. So just a lot of really great experiences with Al-Jabah, either for myself personally or ones that I've helped people, that I've advised people on. Just really great. Al-Jabah can also be useful for physicians themselves who are trying to better their practice, have a better connection with their patients, and are interested in kind of having that more like spirit-led intuition to help them, solve problems for people. That's kind of their thing. That's why we have them around, right? So all in all, Al-Jabah is a very useful, very powerful health-based talisman that really embodies the powers that you would look for or connect with a waxing moon-oriented health talisman, strengthening the body, making the body strong, making the person strong in their body to do, to be able to enjoy their life and give them the energy to do that. So taking a look at our election here, we've got the moon placed in the 10th Lunar Mansion in the 5th house, which is often not a house that I like to put her in. But I made an exception for this because I really like Al-Jabah talismans, and I really wanted to do my best to make an election for each location to be able to get one. So tried to find like the best election that fits all the rules for the different locations for Al-Jabbar, which is a little bit differently from how I normally handle it, since usually it's just like, this place doesn't really have a good one, pass. I usually don't have any qualms about doing that, but for Al-Jabbar, I really wanted to kind of put a little bit more effort than normal into making the talisman work, or making the election work for the talisman, I guess I should say. So that's what I did with this one. That's why the moon's in the 5th house. The moon can be in the 5th house, but it's just like much further down in the totem pole than like the 1st house, which is number 1, the 10th house, which is number 2. That's a really great 2. The 10th house, which is number 2, that's better. And then like the 11th house, the 3rd house, the 5th or the 9th house. Please don't look at my numbers. And then the 5th house, which I would rank like number 6, I guess. So not like a terrible house. It's not like I put the moon in the 12th house. That would be fun. But not one of like not one of the top 4 at all. So that's my glowing endorsement of this election. It's like, it's in the moon's in the 6th place house. It's fine. So anyway, continuing on, my glowing endorsement of this election here. The moon's in the 5th house, which is a little unusual, but we're gonna go with it, especially since the 5th house has significations of like things that are good for the body, and is a health producing house, which I know I normally don't dig into with these, but hey, I'm trying to sell this, is what I'm trying to do. Anyway, so the moon is placed in the 5th house in the 10th lunar mansion, and at this time she's applying this really nice trine to Jupiter in the 1st house, and kind of leaning into Jupiter as a benefic planet who's capable of bestowing and stabilizing health, which is, 2 very, very important powers. So the moon is unafflicted in this chart, has a really nice trine to Mars, is far enough away from the opposition of Saturn to where we don't have to worry about it, 22 degrees away. And here I want to make sure that we're careful though. And the reason why I utilized kind of this very early Aries rising was to make Mars the ruler of the 1st house. So we had to look at Mars and what he was up to. And Mars is conjoined Jupiter. Let me kind of delete this. Here we go. And Mars is conjoined Jupiter, which I thought was very nice, not only because it's the planet not only because Jupiter is a benefic planet and kind of strengthens and stabilizes Mars's stuff, but also because the moon is applying to Jupiter, Mars is conjoined Jupiter. It was nice to have that double connection to Jupiter in this election. So I liked that. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to have a situation where like a minute earlier or so where Pisces was on the ascendant, because then that would mean with Pisces on the ascendant, Jupiter is the ruler of the 1st house, and Jupiter is conjoined Mars, which is not good for Jupiter. And this is one of those situations where I think it's important for us to remember that 2 planets can have 2 very different experiences with an aspectual relationship. Mars's conjunction with Jupiter is better for Mars than it is for Jupiter. So that's why I'd prefer to emphasize the Mars partner in this rather than the Jupiter partner in this. So that's why we want Mars as the ruler of the 1st house, and we want Aries on the ascendant, and not Jupiter as the ruler of the 1st house with Pisces on the ascendant. Our next electional opportunity for Western Europe and North Africa is going to be just for a couple of hours later, this time at 9:27 in the morning. And this is going to be an opportunity, actually for a Mars planetary talisman, a Mars and Aries planetary talisman, our first opportunity, and maybe our only opportunity for this. I don't know yet. But it's a really great one, and I'm glad I was able to get this one. Sorry, Australia, if you're watching still. So looking at our election here, what we want with planetary talismans is we want the planet in its domicile or in some form of high dignity. Mars and Aries checks that box here. We want Mars to be on an angle. It's on the midheaven. We want it to take place during Mars's day or hour. It's Mars's hour at this time. And we want the moon to be immediately applying to that planet. And we have that with the moon immediately applying a nice trine to Mars through or from Leo. So we have everything there. At the same time, we want to make sure that the ruler of the 1st house is well placed, and we do have that in this chart. In this chart, I have late Cancer rising, which points us to the moon here in Leo. She's far enough away from the opposition with Saturn to not have to worry about it yet. Still 19 degrees out, way, way, way out of orb. And of course is unafflicted by Mars because that's who we're after, and has not combust the sun or anything bad like that. And this is kind of like, if you watched the Australian version, there was a situation similarly to where I mentioned that you could have either a Cancer rising and look to the moon, or a Leo rising and look to the sun as the ruler of the 1st house. And that's the same with this one. If you want to use the Cancer rising, you absolutely can. If you want to use the Leo rising, you absolutely can. The only real difference is that, let me take the markers off here. But the only real difference, I think, is that with the Cancer rising, you have some space to use, you have a decent amount of like a window to use here, to where Mars is still coming towards to the midheaven. You still have this kind of forward motion of Mars to the midheaven, Whereas if you go into a Leo rising, then Mars is now, still conjoined the midheaven, right? But is now technically moving off of it. So a little bit less ideal, I think the Leo ascendant is, but I don't think it's such a deal breaker to where if you prefer to Leo ascendant for one reason or another, maybe you just like the sun better, or you have natal planets in early Leo that you would like to emphasize. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. But the Cancer rising gives you a little bit more room to operate within, and has the Mars is still moving up towards the degree of the midheaven, specifically or explicitly, which is very powerful. So our next electional opportunity for Western Europe and North Africa, if you weren't tired enough from having your 10th Lunar Mansion talisman at 3:02 a.m. on June 4th, and you weren't, and you still had energy to go after having your Mars talisman at 9:29 a.m. on June 4th, then maybe you'll be happy to find an 11th Lunar Mansion talisman on June 4th at 5:41. So, just a marathon of talismans that you could be making on that day. The 11th mansion is a mansion that is more specifically indicated for career advancement in a lot of ways. It is a mansion that's traditionally used to get favors from figures in authority and to increase wealth, be victorious in battle, things like that. And so while it can still be utilized for all of those things kind of in different contexts, I feel like having all three of those things under one lunar mansion is actually a very nice encapsulation of the things that you would need or want to have on your side if you were kind of getting involved, or kind of climbing the career ladder, and just sort of typical, careers, if people still have those. I don't know what people do for a living anymore. So if you're in a situation where you're competing for a promotion or trying to negotiate a raise or anything like that, the 11th Lunar Mansion is really helpful for career advancement and things like that. It can be helpful for career advancement in kind of non-traditional career trajectories, I think, as well. But there's really kind of that flavor in the 11th Lunar Mansion, I guess, of having things granted upon you, having titles or positions or monies, finances granted upon you by another person, which I think most easily connects to how we do promotions and raises, kind of that supplication to a boss who is either on our side and advocates for us, or is not on our side and isn't interested in helping us get those things that we want. Obviously, we would prefer to have the former, somebody on our side, and the 11th Lunar Mansion is really helpful about getting that, having that attitude, having those career advancements. So I recommend it for anybody who is in kind of a pinch like that, or is dissatisfied with their career and wants more out of it. The 11th Lunar Mansion can help you do that. So taking a look at my nose keeps itching. So taking a look at our election here, we have the moon in the 10th Lunar Mansion. I'm sorry, no, she's not. She's in the 11th Lunar Mansion in the 10th house, which is a house that's focused on career. See what I did there? And at this time, she is applying the sextile to the sun in Gemini, and I get to talk about sun-moon aspects in a Lunar Mansion chart. And this is, of course, really useful because the sun is definitely a planet that can help us get things like rewards and praise and honors and, new positions and even wealth and things like that too. So the sun-moon connection is very useful, very helpful in a mansion like the 11th Lunar Mansion, because everything that the 11th Lunar Mansion wants to do, the sun can get it done. And that is exactly what we want from the planet that the moon is applying to in a Lunar Mansion talisman. The ability to do the business based on a sense of authority or ownership and responsibility of that business, that kind of specialty. And that's what the sun has in this case, the specialty towards advancement, honors, and things like that. The moon is unafflicted in this chart. We're about 15 degrees away from the opposition to Saturn. I keep saying that because it's the big boogeyman in this. It's just Saturn's here in late Leo, and how close can we get to this without it being a problem? 15 degrees is definitely far enough to where we don't have to worry about it. It's when we start getting within 9 degrees that we stop that mess. Moving on, we look to the ruler of the first house, which in this is Venus, because we have the last degree of Libra rising, and Venus is, chilling out in her sign of domicile in the 7th house. She's unafflicted by Mars or Saturn, and she's doing pretty well. There's an alternative with this one as well that you could do. If you don't want to use Venus, you can wait, and you can utilize Mars if you wanted to go a little bit later, say 1745. And this will get, of course, Scorpio on the ascendant, which takes you to Mars down here, conjoined Jupiter. And I think that can work too. Mars isn't afflicted. It's strong in its sign of domicile. It's conjoined the sixth house cusp, which is kind of not a super great house generally, but Mars finds its joy there. So I don't think it's a terrible situation for Mars to be in. And if you preferred Mars, maybe you have, your midheaven in Scorpio or Aries natally, and so you want to have more of that Mars energy instead, or you have Mars in the 10th house natally, something like that, then maybe you would prefer the Scorpio ascendant. Do it, that's fine. And maybe kind of the opposite for the Venus ascendant. You have Libra or Taurus on the midheaven, or Venus in the 10th house, something like that. That would point you more towards using Venus. Do it, yeah, knock yourself out. Use the Libra one for that. Or just whichever one you get to. Maybe you're late and you have to use the Scorpio ascendant. Been there, and that's just how it goes sometimes. So, but either option will be fine. Don't feel like if you miss the Libra ascendant, then you're done. You've missed out. Scorpio can do fine. And all right, our fourth and final election opportunity for Western Europe and North Africa, I actually got to do all four. What a treat. Is going to be on June 6th, so you have a day off. You have your 3 talismans on the 4th, you get a break, and then you come back on June 6th at 1829 at 6:30 p.m. to do a 13th Lunar Mansion talisman if you're so inclined. The 13th Lunar Mansion is a mansion that, again, is focused on relationships, like several of the mansions. The 13th Lunar Mansion is much more focused on that erotic side of relationships, that more sexual side of relationships, on erotic and sexual energy, and there are a few different uses of that. Of course, it can be utilized to have sex to have sex with other people. That's fine if you want a talisman to help you with that. It can also be utilized not only in finding sexual partners and things like that, but utilized in overcoming sexual dysfunction or sexual impotence, things like that. The purpose of the 13th Lunar Mansion can definitely be focused on helping to kind of regain one's libido, one's own sexual drive after a period of just not really having one. Can help deal with like erectile dysfunction or other forms of sexual impotence, and also with like fertility and conception if that's something that you're after as well. So there are a lot of more like sexual focused things that you can utilize the 13th dimension for. This is really what it's used for specifically. And this is one of those things that you kind of have to fix for your specific situation, in that the image for the 13th Lunar Mansion is basically just like two people waiting to have sex with one another, or like preparing to have sex with one another. And so you have to be a little bit careful in crafting the talisman to fit your needs. Of course, it is traditionally described as a heterosexual couple, but if you are not interested in heterosexual sex, then make it not that. Change it to be whatever it is that you are after. And this is something that I recommend with a lot of the Lunar Mansion talismans that have people in them in their descriptions, to make sure to change the people and their physical attributes to match the people that are involved in your situation for whom you're making the talisman about, whether that's making a talisman for that's supposed to help you with getting favors from an authority figure look like the authority figure that you are trying to get that favors from, if you know who they are, like kind of making it look like your boss. Or if you are trying to help reinforce your relationship with your spouse, to make the figures in the talisman look like you and your spouse. Just things like that. Make sure to make those artistic changes to fit the talisman to your specific to your specific situation. That's why we have these images. So taking a look at our election here for our 13th Lunar Mansion talisman, we have the moon here in the 10th house. In the 13th Lunar Mansion, and she's applying this trine to Venus in Taurus. Venus, of course, being a planet that is all about relating, all about relationships, all about sexuality and sex, and conception or pregnancy, if you're trying to come at it from that angle as well. That's the planet that we want, Venus. That's who we would want in the 13th Lunar Mansion talisman, more so than like any other planet, probably. At the same time, the moon is unafflicted by Mars or Saturn. The ruler of the first house in this election would be Mars here in the 5th house. Again, another house associated with sex. And Mars is doing fine, conjoined Jupiter. The ascendant's not afflicted by Mars or Saturn. Mars isn't afflicted by Saturn, not combust to the sun. All in all, just like a pretty straightforward chart. I think very helpful. So yeah, if you are somebody who is looking to get some it's kind of a weird way to say that, huh? So yeah, if you feel like you're in a situation to where the 13th Lunar Mansion can help you out, here's a really great election for that. But all right, those were all the electional opportunities that we have for Western Europe and North Africa. Now we're going to move on to our final section, where we're going to talk about the electional opportunities available for the North American continent, starting with our first electional opportunity on June 3rd at 9:44 in the morning. And this is going to be the opportunity for the 10th Lunar Mansion talisman. The 10th Lunar Mansion, as I've said, is one of my favorite lunar mansions, probably my second favorite to the 3rd Lunar Mansion. And the 10th dimension is focused primarily on health, its preservation, its restoration, strengthening the body, assisting the constitution, helping the immune system fight off diseases. Just kind of keeping you strong and healthy as you should, helping you to recover from illnesses, helping you to get stronger faster after illnesses. It can also be very helpful in trying to find solutions for like health solutions, whether that be getting a good, proper, accurate diagnosis for a condition that kind of has been leaving you puzzled, or getting you into the path of a physician or doctor who is able to help you solve some of your problems, whether that is, helping you get the right tests and things that you need to come up with that good diagnosis, or helping you get on a really great treatment plan to help you recover as much as possible from whatever illness or health condition that you have been struggling with, either acutely or chronically. So the 10th Lunar Mansion is just all in all a really great health-focused talisman. I recommend it very often. It's one of like the safest, easiest health mansions to work with, and is one that you can keep all around for a really long time that you don't necessarily have to have for just like a specific thing, like to help you deal with a specific illness, like it is advised for some of the other health-based talismans to do. So looking at our election, get one. Here you go, get this. So looking at our election chart for the 10th Lunar Mansion, we've got the moon in the 10th mansion conjoined the ascendant, and at this time she is applying the trine to Mars in Aries. It's out of sign still, but within 6 degrees. So we're going to take it and we're going to work with it. Jupiter, of course, is a really great choice for a planet for the moon to apply to in health talismans, because Jupiter is all about health, healing, stabilizing health, stabilizing the body, reinforcing the body, giving it the good stuff that it needs. Lee is here now, also coming to see what I'm up to. I'm pointing my finger, so he has to sniff it. Hi, kisses. Please don't go knocking my stuff around. He has a bad habit of like rubbing his face on my equipment. And so he'll just like knock it over. It's not fun. It's cute, but it's not fun. It's not good. So Jupiter is a good planet to have the moon apply to in health-based talismans. We definitely like that. And in this election, we have the moon as the ruler of the first house. So we really have to look at the moon in this to make sure that she's doing well. And she is. She's not afflicted by Saturn. She's not afflicted by Mars. The ascendant degree is also not afflicted by Mars or Saturn. And this would probably be an instance where you would want to maintain the Cancer ascendant, because if you go too much further, if you go too far into Leo, like 2 degrees Leo, then the moon is cadent in the 12th house, and you don't want a cadent moon in a Lunar Mansion talisman. So unlike some of the other elections for the 10th Lunar Mansion, which had options either like a late Cancer or an early Leo ascendant, those charts featured the moon more in early Leo. But here with the moon in late Cancer, it's not advised to go into a Leo ascendant. So you have to use Cancer. Sorry. Our second electional opportunity for the North American continent for this time period is going to be on June 4th at just before 3 in the morning. This chart is set for 2:52 a.m. And this is going to be an opportunity for a Mars planetary talisman. And we're going to use red in honor of Mars while we mark this one up. So in this chart, whenever we're making planetary talisman charts, there are 4 key things that we want. The first, the planet must be in a form of high dignity. Domicile, exaltation, those are usually preferred. Mars is in Aries, check. The second, we want that planet to be either conjoined the ascendant or conjoined the midheaven. Mars is conjoined the ascendant, excellent. The third, we want the moon. We want the moon to immediately apply to this planet. The moon in 6 degrees of Leo applies an immediate trine to Mars at 7 degrees Aries. Excellent. And the fourth and final piece, what fucks up a lot of people, is we need Lee to not try to mess with my equipment. That's what we need. Here you go, baby. Yeah, sit there. The fourth thing that messes up a lot of people is we want this all to happen while it is either the planet's day or the planet's hour. And in this chart, at this time, it is Mars's planetary hour. So all 4 things are here. All 4 things are present. There is nothing stopping us from using this election. The only thing is you need to make sure that it stays Mars's hour, because the hour will change when the sun moves into the second house. in Placidus houses anyway. Placidus has a really cool system where the sun's motion around the houses, as it passes the cusp of the houses, marks the transition from one planetary hour to another. It's what makes Placidus one of the best house systems ever. So keep that in mind. If the sun is getting too close to the third house cusp here, kind of moving into the second, it is close to the end of that planetary hour. So there's not a whole lot of time left in Mars's hour here. So you could absolutely start this a little bit earlier if you wanted to. I just wanted to make Mars as angular as I possibly could, but there's no reason why you couldn't start this election or start this talisman making process at 0 degrees Aries on the ascendant. Absolutely, you can do that. And that would give you a few minutes to kind of get everything done that you needed to do without having to worry about the sun shifting over. So all in all, this is a really great Mars and planetary talisman. I like that Mars also gets the kind of the Jupiter assistance here. And Mars isn't afflicted by Saturn. The moon's not afflicted by Saturn. We're still very far away from that moon opposition or the Saturn opposition to worry about. So just a really fun, really great Mars and Aries talisman. You'll probably see a lot of these being offered through various vendors of planetary talismans. So if you see a chart for a talisman piece that looks like this, you should probably pick it up. Just make sure that the moon is still applying to Mars, because once she's passed, she'll be applying the sextile to the sun, which is not good, no bueno. Our third electional opportunity for North America is going to be on June 4th at 10:36 a.m., so just a few hours after our previous one, and this is going to be an opportunity for an 11th Lunar Mansion talisman. The 11th Lunar Mansion is a mansion that traditionally is associated with like victory in battle, honors from authority figures, and increase in wealth, which any one of those things can be good. You can definitely come to the 11th Lunar Mansion specifically for just one of those things that it can do. But I feel like it is a uniquely positioned mansion talisman to be able to help people with career advancement, because usually career advancement involves some form of those three things. Either competing with other people who might be vying for the same position that you're after, competing with other people for a limited amount of resources for like raises, and then of course having a favorable response from one of your superiors when you are requesting or negotiating for that raise, or increase in position or things like that. So the 11th Lunar Mansion, I think, is just really uniquely positioned to take care of all of those things in a way that you don't really see from some of the other ones, which may only have a focus on like one or two of those things kind of incidentally. So taking a look at our election for the 11th Lunar Mansion, I'm going to switch back to blue here, I guess. We have the moon in the 11th Lunar Mansion conjoined the ascendant, which is always exactly where we want her. And at this time, she is applying the sextile to the sun in the 11th house, which of course is a really great connection, because the sun is all about honors, increase in authority, getting good answers from authority, like supplicating authority, honors, wealth, kind of like the trifecta. The sun was the planet that the 11th Lunar Mansion was made for. The sun was the planet that the moon was made to apply to in an 11th Lunar Mansion talisman, I guess would be the best way to say that. So we definitely want to take advantage of that while we have it. At the same time, the sun is the ruler of the first house, so we look to the sun and make sure that he's well placed, not afflicted by anybody, and that is the case here. He's not afflicted by Mars, not afflicted by Saturn, not conjoined the node, which we would worry about with the sun more than we would for some of the other planets. All in all, just a really great chart for this. I like that the 10th Lord is in the 10th. Just little things like that, I guess, that could be fun in other ways. But yeah, a very solid election. Definitely take advantage of it if you are, in a position to where you're trying to renegotiate wages or get a raise or get promoted. Definitely knock yourself out. So our fourth electional opportunity for North America is going to be on June 6th at around 4:15 in the afternoon. I apologize. And this is going to be an opportunity for a 13th Lunar Mansion talisman. This election has gone through some revisions, different from what I initially thought to cast it as. So that's been fun to sort out immediately, or like in the moment. But in this, we're looking at a 13th Lunar Mansion talisman, and the 13th Lunar Mansion is one that is more specifically indicated for relationships, specifically the sexual or erotic side of relationships, whether that is helping somebody find compatible sexual partners, helping somebody overcome various sexual dysfunctions, helping somebody to become pregnant, helping with conception, or helping to kind of like reignite somebody's libido, or kind of like reignite the sexual relationship between people that maybe has kind of, petered out over time. All of these things can be very helpful. We're going to go ahead and talk about this one here now because we're going to have another one that's going to be unique to the North American continent immediately following. But the 13th lunar mansion is specifically indicated for male sexual health. So boys, if you're having some issues with something, whether that's premature ejaculation or erectile dysfunction or death grip syndrome or anything like that, even just kind of like general performance anxiety, really make sure to dig into the 13th lunar mansion. It is here specifically to help you out, sort of like the urologist will say of the lunar mansions. Ladies, we will talk to you in the next election, but if you are unable to make that election or are in a location and still watching that did not have an opportunity for the 19th lunar mansion, which we'll talk about in a minute, North America, then please still utilize the 13th lunar mansion. It is not a male exclusive talisman or mansion, but it is that is its specialty, we'll say. So taking a look at our talismanic collection here, we have the moon placed in the 13th mansion, and she is in the 11th house in this chart. Usually I like her more towards the midheaven, of course, or the ascendant. But I really wasn't able to get that to work for the North American version. I didn't want Mercury as the ruler of the first house because Mercury is square Saturn, so we couldn't have Virgo on the ascendant. And then I don't remember why I didn't like it on the midheaven. Let's find out. Why did I not like the moon on the midheaven? Oh, because Jupiter was the ruler of the first house. Jupiter or Mars. I didn't like that. Yeah, that's why. I didn't want Jupiter as ruler of the first house because it was going to join Mars. But this one I like. I like this one. What time did I say? The election for this is 1615. So yeah, there we go, 4:15. And so we've got the moon in the 11th lunar mansion, 13th lunar mansion in the 11th house. And at this time, she's applying the trine to Venus. Venus, of course, is a very useful planet when it comes to relationships generally, but also relationships, the sexual side of relationships. Venus is all about that. Venus rules sex. So we definitely want that assistance, want that pleasure, want that enjoyment, want that conception, if that's what you're after. We just want that. We want it all. At the same time, we want to make sure the moon is not afflicted. She's not afflicted by Mars. She's not afflicted by Saturn. She's not combust the sun. She's doing really well. Venus is the ruler of the first house. Venus is also doing very well placed here in her sign of domicile in an angular house. Not afflicted by Saturn, not afflicted by Mars, not combust the sun. All in all, this is a really great, really easy 13th lunar mansion talisman. Please pick it up if you need it. And then our final electional opportunity for the North American continent and for this video is going to be on June 12th at 1848. He wants to be in my lap. Sure, we'll go with this. And this is going to be an opportunity for a 19th lunar mansion talisman. Now, the 19th lunar mansion is one that we haven't gotten to talk about in a long time because the node has been too close to it. The 18th and 19th lunar mansions have been kind of closed off for a little bit because of the presence of the south node here, and we don't want that because the moon cannot be conjoined the node in a lunar mansion talisman. It's one of the big rules. But now we have gotten enough space. But now, in this election, I feel like we've gotten enough space between the moon and the node in this one to be able to talk about and to utilize the 19th lunar mansion. Again, we were not able to do that in the Australian and Western European versions of this chart because the moon was still too close to Scorpio, so still in Scorpio this time. Now that we moved on with the moon in Sagittarius, I feel like we can kind of talk about this one. The 19th lunar mansion is a really interesting mansion. It is one that, on the one hand, is useful for protection from negative spiritual forces. So it can be very helpful for individuals who feel like they have some gunk on them, some spiritual gunk on them that they have not been able to shake off. It is very useful for people who feel like they may be afflicted by some malevolent energy, whether that's something like the evil eye or hexes or curses or, whatever, or just you want to keep, just the general spiritual gunk of interacting with people off of you. The 19th lunar mansion is very helpful for. It also has another more female specific usage in that the 19th lunar mansion is more specifically indicated for female sexual health problems in a way that is very similar to how the 13th lunar mansion is more specifically indicated for male sexual health problems. So women, ladies, if you are struggling with some sort of sexual issue, whether that's like a decreased libido, infertility, the 19th lunar mansion is helpful for. Amenorrhea or painful menses, irregular menses, an arousal dysfunction or pain during sex, any of those things, the 19th Lunar Mansion is your friend, is your ally to help you get some use out of, to help you resolve some of those issues and bring yourself some relief. The 19th Lunar Mansion is like the OBGYN of the Lunar Mansions, in a way that I don't know if you can hear them, but Ty back there is growling because Lee is over there bothering her. And now she's over here having run for my aid. So yeah, 19th Lunar Mansion, very helpful, especially for women who may be struggling with any number of female sexual health issues. That is not to say, men, that you should not go to the 19th Lunar Mansion for sexual health problems. She can definitely still help you with that. It's just sort of like she's more specifically interested in helping the ladies. But if there's a situation where you're not able to get a 13th Lunar Mansion talisman, the 19th can still be helpful for you. So taking a look at our election here, we have the moon in the 19th Lunar Mansion, kind of barely hanging on to it. And at this time, she is applying the trine to Jupiter, which of course is very good. We want to have the moon applied to a benefic planet who's capable of healing and, helping us. Jupiter also rules children, so it can be helpful for conception or issues with protecting pregnancies. If you need that sort of assistance, if that's sort of more what you're after, the 19th Lunar Mansion can definitely help you with that too. And we want to make sure that the moon is unafflicted. The moon is. She's not afflicted by Saturn. She's not afflicted by Mars. The ascendant degree is not afflicted by Mars or Saturn. And the ruler of the first house, Jupiter here, is also unafflicted by Mars or Saturn now, having gotten enough space from the conjunction with Mars to not have to worry about it. Now almost 10 degrees apart. So all in all, just kind of a really solid election. It's the first 19th Lunar Mansion election that we've gotten to really talk about, as even being like a contender, being like even on the table at all, because the lunar node has been so close into this mansion, to where if the moon was here, there's no way we could even get to talk about it because the moon would be afflicted by the node. But now that the south node is starting to leave the mansion, get close to the exit point, the moon in the back half of the mansion is much more free. We don't have to worry about those afflictions with the node anymore. So that means if we have a situation where the moon on the ascendant is kind of like in the last few degrees, the 19th Lunar Mansion will be able to utilize it. So that means that the 19th Lunar Mansion is now in, and the 18th Lunar Mansion is now out. So that's just how the turntables, I guess we'll say. But all right, thank you guys so much for watching. We have a lot of good electional opportunities during this waxing moon phase to get some help with. So hopefully there was something here that you're able to utilize to be able to help you resolve some issue that you have been facing, to help you get some relief from that. I want to say a thank you to all of my patrons who supported me through this. And if you're interested in supporting the series, make sure to check out my Patreon and see how you can do that and all the different bonuses and rewards that you get for your support in that way. Thank you all so much, and I will see you all again on our Sagittarius full moon.